Kansas senator, also member of the Agriculture, Finance, and Budget Committees, Roger Marshall. Senator Marshall, you know, it's interesting because a month or so ago I read in a liberal publication that if there's a shutdown this time, the Democrats won't be able to blame the Republicans. And still, you know, it looks like this is the gamut they may be going for.
Yeah, well, Charles, this would be the Schumer shutdown. If that's what happens on Friday when the clock strikes midnight, it's the responsibility of Chuck Schumer. He and Joe Biden had every opportunity to give us a budget for the rest of the year. It was their responsibility to do it. We cannot get a budget passed without at least probably 8 Democrats coming across the aisle. This vote will take 60 senators to pass it, so it's all upon them. As a Republican, we want to get this fiscal year behind us so we can get back to work on the president's priorities.
Yeah, speaking of this fiscal year, from October to February, numbers are out yesterday, mind-boggling. It's out of control. It's so mind-boggling that at the point that the eyes glaze over and people have become almost numb to this, but we can't be numb to the fact that wherever that proverbial cliff is, we're getting to it a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. So Medicaid spending by the federal government has increased 50% in 5 years. It's completely unsustainable. We're going to pay $1 trillion in interest this year alone. So that's why we're here today to talk with the president. We want to talk about funding his priorities, securing the border, funding the military, but also we got to talk about how do we get towards a balanced budget? How in the next 4 years of his term could he leave the legacy to be the first president in decades to balance a budget? And that's what we hope to discuss today.
Speaking of this discussion today, traditionally, both parties go into, they bring in a new administration and they have a checklist of things they want to do. I know a lot of folks wanted to do taxes before anything else. Obviously, tariffs have superseded all of that. But also, President Trump, censor trying to get a ceasefire in Russia, stop that war. He's trying to, make comments today about Greenland. A lot of older Republican leadership are saying, hey, we're doing too much at the same time. Is that something that might come up in this conversation?
Well, it's hard to look at any one of these problems in silos. At the end of the day, we have a $2 trillion deficit every year. I think we have to fund the president's his priorities, like I said before, including making America safe again. But beyond that, we have to figure out how we get towards a balanced budget. You sit there and look at this federal budget. We're spending $1 trillion on the military, $1 trillion on Medicaid, $1 trillion on Medicare. All of a sudden, you're talking about some real money. We need to find the fraud, waste, and abuse in there. And again, come up with a plan that we can all agree upon to work towards that balanced budget. When we do that, then you're going to see interest rates start to come down, the stock market's going to respond, and the economy will come right along with it.
The no tax on overtime. I want to switch gears a little bit because this was a key feature in the campaign. In fact, one of the, I think, nuances that helped put President Trump over the top. In fact, it was quickly adopted by his Democratic rival. I think ultimately people feel like this is a hard group of working folks. They're notoriously underpaid, and everyone agrees that this is going to happen. Just about everyone. There are some skeptics out there. What are you doing? You have something that you're doing to move this along.
Right. So we'll be presenting the president today for one of his priorities, a bill that would have no tax on overtime. Look, this is the president of hardworking Americans, folks that are out there are working overtime. I've done it before. I was an hourly wage employee for years while I was going through college and medical school and know what it's like to work that overtime and see the federal government seems like they were taking 50 or 60% of it. So we're going to present to him a plan, what that looks like on paper for no tax on overtime. It's one of his priorities. Again, this is the president for hardworking Americans.
What do you make, and I know you have to go into this meeting soon, I love the fact that President Trump, there's no Trump put, that President Trump is not letting the establishment, the hedge funds, push him around by pushing the stock market lower with these crazy headlines that scare people every day, that the focus is longer term. Are you dealing with any pushback at all with this?
Well, I think some people will have some short-term pain, but I think most of us have confidence in President Trump that there's going to be long-term gain. We saw this from President Trump 1.0. I think the tariffs are a good point. President Trump is masterfully using these tariffs to put some of our not-so-friendly foes at bay right now. And eventually he'll end up at a reciprocal position. So, yes, there's a few people out there concerned, but I just tell folks, look, I wouldn't watch the stock market every hour, every day. I think in the long run we're going to be great. But again, we got to work towards the long-term plan here of a balanced budget. I think that would work, help Wall Street as much as anybody. But I think most importantly, this is the president of Main Street, not Wall Street. He's the president for hardworking Americans.
Main Street, not Wall Street. You can almost fit that on a bumper sticker. I love it. Senator Marshall, thank you very much. Appreciate it.